Our next game is going to be Tapper, the arcade game, aka Root Beer Tapper, right?
I think it also had like 1 billion ports. It was like available in every system that ever existed.
Much. And that was made by @CrushGals on.
I like that name. That's a great name.
It sounds like a roller derby team.
Yeah.
@CrushGals nominated Tapper. So you kids might know Tapper as the source of the bar in Wreck-It Ralph, where Ken and Ryu go, and Ralph famously finds Zangief's what is that thing? Banana hammock or something.
I was going to say man thong.
Speedo?
Yeah. It's a game. It was kind of like it's really sort of a relic in a way that it tells you exactly where you could expect to find arcade games in sort of the early 80s, which was bars. I mean, you'd find them everywhere, but this was a game that was basically made to be set up in a bar. So the idea is that like you've got like these three. It's one of these. It's like I call these plate spinning games, because the whole idea behind the game is that you've got like three different. I think you've got three. I think it's 3 or 4.
4 actually.
It starts at 4 and it goes up the longer the game goes.
You got all these different bar tables that kind of extend out. And then there's you don't really see who's doing
advancing.
Right. So somebody's sliding mugs of beer down the table, like in a way that never ever happened except in like 50s westerns or something, and you've got to catch the mugs, right? Am I remembering this correctly?
No, you don't. You're not catch. Well, you do, but okay. Look, I know the tapper. You are the tapper. You pour beers and throw them at the hordes of angry patrons.
Right.
Plus, you look a bit like Mario, so there's that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I got that wrong. All right. Sorry.
But then you do catch the glasses later on. Some people return the glasses as the game goes on.
Yeah. If
stuffs them into their purse.
Yeah.
Right.
If the patrons are far back enough, then they exit through the ends of the bar tables. If you don't hit them far back enough, then they drink their beer and then send the empty mug back, and you have to catch that, or else you lose a life if it slides off the end of the table and smashes down.
The interesting part about this game is basically the goal of this game is to make as little money as possible, because you're throwing your patrons out faster.
Yeah, you want to get to closing time.
They're like Barney Gumble, and they just ran out of money, and you throw them out in their ass. Now, was the original version of this game the one that was branded with like what Budweiser?
Budweiser, yes, exactly.
And then they made alternate versions like Mountain Dew.
Was there ever a like in the when it was released, when it was new? Was there a generic version of it?
I think that was Root Beer Tapper.
Well, I know there's Root Beer Tapper, but I mean like one that is just, it's Tapper, it's beer, but it's not sponsored by the king of beers.
I'm not sure of that.
It's possible. It's a little hard to tell. There's been so many different versions of this game, and I want to say that they went with Root Beer Tapper at some point because they wanted a version they could market to a younger audience.
Well, yeah, you do basically almost nothing to change it, but you just make it Root Beer Tapper, and then you don't have to feel bad about.
I assume there was non-Budweiser versions, by the way, since it was released in foreign markets. It wasn't just the US, and they don't have Budweiser.
What was the other thing? Wasn't there... I've played this in an arcade not too long ago, but I'm kind of blanking out on what it's like. I recall it had some kind of tap-shaped handle. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Uh-huh.
Had like a little bar rail on it.
Yeah, that was really cool. And did it also have something that you can rest your beer on?
I've never actually played the actual cabinet. My first experience was a Midway Arcade Treasures. You remember that compilation?
Well, I mean, I guess none of this matters, but the tap controller was pretty cool. It's one of those games I feel like isn't really as much... I don't like plate spinning games, to be honest. I don't like games where it just feels too stressful. It feels too much like reality. Like it feels like a normal job.
As a matter of...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you get the side of the cabinet you could fit a beer in. It's not exactly a beer holder, but it's kind of more like the edge of a bar. Is the side of the cabinet.
That's good. Okay, good. They were thinking ahead.
Speaking of real life, there's a segment in the immortal Game Boy Advance game Urban Yeti, which is very similar to Tapper. Almost plagiarizes it outright, although I think you're sliding bowls of soup instead of beer, but it's the same premise, more or less.
Tapper is being plagiarized many, many times. Is it the original plate spinner game? It's very close to the original.
No, I don't. I gotta say no. I don't know what else would be before it, but it seems like it's too basic a game concept to be the first one in Tapper.
I mean, I guess Game & Watch games, some of those are pretty close to plate spinners.
Yeah, that's a good.
I could definitely see Tapper being a Game & Watch game. It's not, but you could see it being one.
Right, yeah. Like oil spill, right? Or what?
Yeah,
what
like
oil panic.
Oil panic. Yeah, that makes more sense. Oil panic. Right, that's a plate spinner game.
When I think of plate spinning, why do I always think of the saber dance playing in the background? You know, the one goes like...
That's what you see in like a circus. Somebody's doing the plate spinning thing.
And this game, it's a traditional arcade game. It doesn't really have an ending. You go through 4 sets of stages. The last one is in space, and you serve aliens, which is really cool.
I never got that far.
I think I did once.
Look it up. You go to a space bar, and there's aliens, and that's like, oh, cool. That's a feature.
So,
ludicrously
where do we put something like this? Because this is a good, like, it's a game that's mostly cool just for the sort of gimmicks that were put into it, and it's got some good artwork and stuff like that. Good concept.
Quite good. It doesn't. It's not one of those games that ages very badly because it's from a period when arcade games were just short, fun, simple games.
Right. It's a straight up score attack. It's like this is a game. It's like a cell phone game now. Like a smartphone game.
I'm pretty sure it has there's been dozens of cell phone games that are the exact same.
Make an early hunch here, more I'd put it. What about between Donkey Kong Country 3 and Marvel Land?
I would put it above Donkey Kong Country 3. That's me. I would put it above.
Okay, I guess I can accept that.
But I will say, if you guys want one point about Tapper that is against Tapper, I don't believe it gets any more difficult with each consecutive loop. So
that seems really odd.
Yeah, the game stays like it's like the 4 stages are increasingly challenging, and then it just loops back. Like there's no speed up, there's no extra people. The game locks in those 4 stages, which is curious.
That is that is weird because that's not the way an arcade game was supposed to be. Like it's supposed to get.
Are you sure about that, Cal? Because I'm actually observing a video here where it's back in the first area, but there are clearly a lot more people than before.
I know. I thought I read that it. Oh, maybe it's 2 loops and then it doesn't get any harder. I believe it.
Okay. So it caps off early.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Like you're not going to be. I mean, other games. I think like Donkey Kong and a couple other games also cap off pretty early. But that's just. You can't play this one until you lose. You play this one until you get bored.
Yeah, at a certain point, Donkey Kong just becomes an endurance challenge. Like, yeah.
But that's fine.
Kill screen coming up.
Yeah,
had to do it.
Yeah.
But because it's such a classic, like everyone knows Tapper. Like you said, it was in Wreck-It Ralph. It is in Wreck-It Ralph, and people recognize it because it is such a quintessential game. Maybe because it was in bars that a lot of older generational people like, oh, that game, I've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I think also like the tap controller thing is like something that kind of made people, if you remember an arcade game, if you're my age and you remember an arcade game, it's because people kept them around. It's because like it was unique enough or interesting enough, and it was, if it was really old, that people would keep it around. So you'd see Tapper well into the 90s just because it was interesting enough. It's kind of like Mario Brothers in that way, or Donkey Kong.
I mean, one of the main reasons I would put it up is just I really like the fact that it has a tap handle as a controller. I love arcade games that have gimmicky controllers.
That's a great gimmick, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a great like game in terms of like what it is. It's not going to be like the best game ever because it can't be. It's too simple, but
I think it's really I'd put it kind of close to like the Rainbow Islands range because I feel
put it that low. You think?
Well, it's not that low. I mean, that's
lower. I mean, anything below Uni Races is kind of our dubious. Quality.
Xerxes made a decent point about the game being somewhat comparable to the drudgery of an actual job.
Well, but that's not. But some people like that. Like, I can't.
You mean like the forklift in Shenmue?
I mean, have you seen like smartphone games? Almost all of those are click this for 10 hours.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Wasn't Dinner Dash basically like a version of Tapper in a way?
It all falls under this sort of like arcade time management style thing.
Yeah, I mean, some people really like I like Oil Panic and I like Tapper. I just it's more like a taste thing. Like, I just don't like.
I mean, I wouldn't play it for that long. I wouldn't sit down and go, all right, I'm going to play Tapper for 10 hours. Like, no.
I mean, you got to differentiate it from Galaga, and that Galaga is kind of, for its time, was like the.
It's not anywhere near Galaga.
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, it's Galaga is too pure and perfect a game of its kind in era, whereas Tapper was like a really good game for its era, but is not necessarily like, I don't know. All right, so.
I mean, if you guys think it should be below
NFL Blitz Uniracers, where does it fall there?
Yeah. I'm always
above NFL Blitz, I'd say that.
Because
I think like Tapper, again, if you're not a gamer, it's a game that you're like, oh, I'll play it. That's pretty fun. I like that about it. It doesn't. People who aren't into games can play and enjoy Tapper, and I think that's nice.
True. There is something that, and it does draw people in if for no other reason than the theme. And it is a good use of the theme. Like they say, oh, a bar, like let's do like the sliding bar glass, beer glass going down the counter, even though that again never happens. But it's cool. Like, I mean, but it's gimmicky. I mean, it's gimmicks are gimmicks. They are what they are. You can't just say something. Oh, it's got a great gimmick. I mean, because there's so many coin-op arcade games that are gimmicky like that. Like the games that had like the cassette tape in the background to play like, actual music. Like,
oh, you mean Journey? Also by Bally Midway. Bally
and Psycho Soldier, I believe, did the same thing, right?
It did have vocals. I'm not sure. That might have actually been compressed, though, because I seem to remember it.
There's no way. Oh, it could be.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's compressed because it's really, really garbage. If that was...
That's true.
That was.
But anyway, it's the same kind of gimmick. Yeah. It's like, it's something that is supposed to make the game stand out, but doesn't really affect the quality of the gameplay.
It does a great, unlike the music, it does a great job of making you feel vaguely like you're actually operating a tap, because you fill the beers, right? You pull the lever and then you release it or whatever. So, it is slightly more of a gameplay overlap than just music.
All right. Okay. So, I mean, okay, so we're saying above NFL Blitz, above Marvel Land.
I've actually never played Marvel Land, so I can't even tell you. Like,
I honestly, I remember when we ranked it like 2 years ago when we were first starting this idea, when we were testing it. And I remember really liking Marvel Land at the time, but I can't actually remember that much about it. But it's 100% correct. The ranking is scientifically sound. It is accurate as hell. So we can't question that. We just have to assume we knew what we were talking about.
I think I want to agree with Bob's original placement to wedge it between Donkey Kong Country 3 and Marvel Land, because it's nowhere near as complex as a game like DKC 3.
But it doesn't have to be complex.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good point, but...
Donkey Kong Country?
Well,
definitely.
Even for a simple arcade game, it is still pretty simple. Like, there's not as much nuance as even compared to Pac-Man, where like Billy Mitchell's able to memorize all the points where ghosts don't get you and whatnot.
My reasoning is NFL Blitz is pretty great, but not everyone has to play football. Tapper is pretty easy to get into, but it's not quite as complex as something like Marvel Land, for better or worse.
Okay, so let's put it above NFL Blitz and below Marvel Land. Everybody concur?
I'm not going to win this, so...
Well, you won the last one, so...
There's no winning.
I don't remember nearly enough about Marvel Land. I don't necessarily want to take it down a peg.
Let's put it above NFL Blitz, because that'll put the two, not video gamey games next to each other, That's good. We'll put, sport
I would put
and
it above
beer.
Donkey Kong Country 3 is what I'm saying.
If
I would put
you guys
it
don't
below
put it
G.I. Joe, above Donkey Kong Country 3.
I wouldn't put it above G.I. Joe.
I wouldn't either.
No, not me. Tapper is an incredibly cromulent game. and it's a classic. But
put it with beer and sports. I'm going with that. Let's do it.
Actually, yeah, you know what? Putting it that way,
I think Bob is going to be the decider here. So, what do you say?
I'm pretty happy with my original guess so far.
What was that?
Thought, I mean, between Donkey Kong Country 3 and Marvel Land.
I mean, I'm happy to put it below Marvel Land unless you guys really want to put it.
All right, I think
okay,
Bob and Air's like the consensus pick though. Like that's the average because I would put it above Donkey Kong Country 3 and.
Okay, was Marvel Land represented in Wreck-It Ralph?
No, but that's
QED.
Like, look, Wreck-It Ralph. You want to have like an after hours kind of hangout for the game characters. Like, where else are you going to go besides Tapper?
Marvel Land sounds like a place you could go, like an amusement park to unwind.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like it's iconic. I would put it above Donkey Kong Country 3. But I don't think anybody else agrees with me, so that can't be right.
I agreed above Donkey Kong Country 3. It was the other guys who weren't sure. We've gone around in circles.
All right.
Flip a coin?
It's too bad that...
All right, wait.
I will too. Let's just move this along. Between G.I. Joe and Donkey Kong Country 3, I'm good with it.
All right.
Yes. I mean, hey, I love Tapper. Don't get me wrong. I'd be glad to upvote it. It's just...
Tapper. And we're going to just go ahead and say it's the original Tapper, whatever that was, the beer version, glorifying poisoning your liver version.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say in this case, you can't beat the classics. Most of Midway Williams' games back then are still very fun to play today.
So it's going right under G.I. Joe for NES, right above Donkey Kong Country 3 for Super Nintendo. That's where Tapper's going.